Welcome to lesson number 4. If you haven't watched the last 3 lessons, take a moment right now, stop this video, and watch the other 3 videos before we jump into this lesson. Alright, well for today, we're going to cover the last similarity between a great marriage and effective evangelism. A couple of years ago, I heard a great sermon from Dr. A.R. Bernard. He's a senior pastor of Christian Cultural Center in Brooklyn, New York. And in his sermon, he tells a story of how he made his wife cry. He had been looking for opportunities to serve his wife. And so he tells a story where he ironed her dress, multiple dresses. Right? He wasn't sure which one she would wear. And when she saw what he had done, she was so overwhelmed with emotion that she began to cry. And I recall him saying, "Yes, yes, Lord, make her cry." I found it funny, but his point was that a great marriage, like effective evangelism, is a result of serving one another. Warren Wiersbe, in his book on being a servant, defines ministry or service as taking place when divine resources meet human needs through loving channels to the glory of God. We're just conduits of God's divine resources. We match his resources with the needs of our community. So let me give you my number 1 tip that's going to help you better serve your community. And it's this: you've got to create a culture of servitude. Create a culture of servitude. And the easiest way to do that is using the following 5 steps. All right, are you ready? Step 1, create an opportunity for people to serve. Again, in our last session, we talked about being relevant. So what you've got to do is talk to the community, find out their needs, and plan a way to meet those needs. Step 2, talk about the upcoming opportunities, right? You got to let the congregation know the why behind it. We talked about your why in lesson number 1, but talk about the why with your congregation so that it becomes their why. Step number 3, serve. Whatever the opportunity is, do it. Serve the community. Let me give you one warning. Don't overthink it, right? One of my favorite books is called Action Trumps Everything. So what you've got to do is you've got to take action. Don't get caught up in the planning or planning the perfect outreach or trying to avoid failure. Just do something. It's going to be chaotic, but trust me, it's going to be okay. It's going to be messy, but serving people gets messy. And that's just the bottom line. But don't spend forever planning one event. Do something. One church I coach in New Jersey did this. They had about 30 or so volunteers come out, give out food, they gave out clothing. Listen, they provided resources for about 450 people. That's 30 people who provided resources for 450 people in their community. Why? Because they didn't overthink it. They just made a plan that they thought would work and they took action. Step number 4, celebrate it. Celebrate it in a weekend service. Celebrate it via email. The point is, let the people know what happened. Tell them about the amount of people who came out. Tell them about the people you served. Thank the volunteers who came out. Show pictures, take videos, give out stats, quote the thank yous that you got from the community. Here's the point. Make your congregation feel like they should have been there. If someone missed the opportunity to serve, they should be hearing your report and thinking, man, I need to make the next one. Step 5, debrief. This is a super critical step. You can't skip it. So the question is, how can you improve your service, right? What could you have done to get more volunteers? How did you tie your outreach to Sunday so that more people would have attended your service or outreach, and then they would have come to the church the following Sunday? So let me give you a quick outline of how to do a debrief. First, take some time and rate the quality of your outreach on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being horrible, 10 being amazing. What was your outreach? Then rate the response of the people on a scale of 1 to 10. How did your audience, how did your community respond? Did they respond to the altar call? How did the people respond to what you did and what you offered? Finally, rate the church impact, right? The people come to your church, and did this outreach cause it to grow? I mean, what did it do for the congregation? So you've got to rate that from 1 to 10. Okay, and then you've got to get together with your team and discuss what you learned and what improvements you can make. And of course, implement those improvements. See, getting your outreach or your service to the community right is important for 2 reasons. Reason number 1, because how you serve people speaks to value. In other words, when you serve your wife, it communicates that you care for her. Or if you serve your husband, it reflects that you care for him. And in the same manner, how you serve your community, that act of service communicates value to them. Second, serving also communicates a sense of humility. When you're serving someone, you're putting their needs before your own, which elevates others. It's the principle found in the book of Philippians chapter 2, when Paul writes, "But in humility, consider others better than yourself. Each of you should look not only to your own interest, but also to the interest of others." That's Philippians 2 verse 3. Okay, so at this point, we're going to assume that you've got everything you need to reach your community, to reach the 100 new visitors, right? Because in lesson 1, we learned our why. Why are you going to reach your community? And then I instructed you to take your why and share it with your congregation, so it becomes their why. Then, in lesson number 2, I taught you the theory of the 3 touches, which leads to reaching your community consistently. And consistency is a key to effective evangelism. All right, and in lesson 2, we also laid out our 90-day outreach plan. Lesson number 3, we talked about being relevant, which helps us get more grassroots with our audience. We get to know them, and then we get to minister specifically to their needs. So in this lesson, in lesson number 3, we laid out the maps for the number of outreaches. But in this lesson, all right, we got the information we needed in order to plan an effective outreach. Then finally, in today's lesson, we talked about service, and we gave it a definition and learned 5 steps for creating a culture of servitude. And so now in our final lesson, lesson number 5, we're going to assume that you have reached people in your community, that you hosted an amazing outreach, and now it's Sunday, and people are looking to come to your church. In other words, you're attracting first-time guests. And so what do you do next? I mean, how do you connect them? How do you grow them? So we're going to talk about that and more in our next lesson. See you at lesson number 5. Talk to you then.